Welcome back to the Manage to Win podcast. I'm your host, David Russell. Today's episode is sponsored by Habitly.com. And, one of the courses we have on there is Three Strands Leadership. It is my own unique system for how to become a great leader. I had a crash and burn with a dot bomb. It started out as a .com, became a dot bomb back in the year 2002. And then I went on this journey to learn about leadership and have refined my system into three things that you do. You do these well, you will be an awesome leader. Three Strands Leadership is one of the courses on Habitly.com, 7 days free. Go check it out. Can't go wrong. Today's episode is with Curtis L. Jenkins. He's the author of Vision to Reality, Stop Working, Start Living. He does some very interesting coaching. He's got a model that he works people through. And in this episode, it's really cool. He's going to walk us through an example of one of his clients, how he worked them through this and they benefited. So let's dive in. I think you'll enjoy it. And there's a lot here to learn. Welcome, Curtis, to the show. I'm really glad to have you on. You've written this book, Vision to Reality, Stop Working, Stop Living. I wonder if I need to get more of a reality check. So please give the audience info on your background and what you're doing today. And I think we're going to have a great conversation.
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me. I got a chance to look at some of your podcasts probably prior to joining. So I appreciate being in such a elite company, and some of them I really, really enjoyed. So I'm hoping that this podcast is as enjoyable as the ones that I've already seen. So as you introduced me, my name is Curtis Jenkins, and what I do is I specialize in helping small business owners, I focus on the owner, develop strategies to grow their businesses from where they are to 7 and 8 figures. And I do this through a process that I've created called the Realization Framework Experience, which is a 5-step process that allows me to show them how to behave like a large company, being a small company. And it's a simple process, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. I wrote the book Vision to Reality, Stop Working, Start Living, because I want to make an impact. I want to be able to share this story with other business owners so that they can stop working and start living. And I talk about that because most of the small business owners that I know, they live from payroll to payroll, just trying to make it happen. So that's a little bit about my background, and we can definitely go more into it. But it really started with working with, as I was growing with my friends who had their own businesses. Many of them would always come to me and say, "Hey, Curtis, my business would grow if I just had more money." And I would ask them, I would say, "Well, let me take a look. Let's work together and see, do you really need more money? Because if I asked you how much money you need, and if I was going to stroke you a check today, what's that number?" Now, typically there's an arbitrary number, but it's not just a fabricated number. And then I go, okay, what are you willing to give up for that money? And then when will you pay it back? How will you use the money? So after doing this several times, what I realized is they didn't need more money. They needed more organization. And when they did need more money, they needed their business to be organized in such a way that their books could tell a story to the people who could give them money, right? So that's what this started with. And then I started having this collection of work, and I just kept doing it. And through their referrals, I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And it compelled me not only to write a book, but I also have a course coming out so that I can affect many more people associated with trying to grow their business.
Well, I find it interesting because you talk about how the small business people are going from paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And that is true so often. And then you talk about, you didn't exactly use these words, but the numbers telling a story. Yeah. And so I don't know whether you want to dive into your framework or whether you want to talk about this numbers telling a story. And the other piece that you alluded to, which is also kind of the cover of your book, is kind of vision to reality. You have eyeglasses on the book cover. I almost wonder whether it's like a focus knob where you need to get better and focus because you're just working hard, but not working smart.
That's right. I mean, you just summed it right there. Working hard, not working smart. But let me talk to you about vision and why the eyeglasses, right? And you can see that my glasses match the cover of my book. But, in my career, I learned that in order to get anything done, well, first of all, business is a team sport. And if you're going to be successful, you need other people. A lot of small business owners think they're the only ones that can do anything. And that is so far from the truth, right? And even when people come to me and ask me for help, they're saying they need other people. But the first thing I work with people on is having a compelling and inspirational vision. What do you want to be like? What are you aspiring to be? Where are you trying to go? And look, most large companies that have these big strategic bodies that work inside, they have a strategic arm and they have an operations arm that can deliver on it. Small business owners don't have that. So they have their charm, they have their business, their product, their service, but they need to be able to motivate the people that are in their business ecosystem with, where are you trying to go? And you have to be able to articulate that. Even if you want more money, you have to pitch for it, right? So you have to be able to explain where you're trying to go. And I found that there's such a disconnect between the people that work for the business and the actual business owner. So that's the first thing I work with them on is, first of all, creating a vision, articulating that vision, and articulating that vision in a way that it drives sort of a compelling want for everybody to want to get behind it in that business ecosystem. So that's the first part in the vision to reality spectrum, or my realization framework experience.
So does the vision have to be something unique or something you're super passionate about? Or does it just have to be like, we're a restaurant and we're going to provide a great meal to people type of thing?
So, I mean, it could be that rudimentary, but I would not advise it to be that rudimentary. So I'll give you a specific example. I have a business owner I work with that does a construction management business. And what they said was they wanted to be the largest minority contractor in Pennsylvania, and they wanted to pattern themselves after Turner Construction. So now that's something that we can see, right? Even if we take a look at the way that Turner Construction has built over the years, how they're organized, you have something that you can see. And you provide an opportunity for people to say, you know what, I want to be a part of that. So that's the first part of having a vision, right?
So I have a question about that. So
Sure.
Let's take that model. You see a larger company. I want to build like them.
Yep.
And this is going to be minority owned versus Turner, whoever owns that. But is there another piece of that you help them develop? Whether that's going to be, we're not only going to be a minority, but we're actually going to, I'm going out on a limb, but we're going to hire people who are ex-inmates and help them get back in the community, or we're going to do this good part, or we're going to do our books better, or we're going to be more transparent. We're going to communicate with clients better. Was there another piece that you helped them develop also, or was it good enough for them to just be kind of replicating the Turner model in their particular way they wanted to do it?
Right. So now I'm going to walk you through the realization framework experience, telling their story.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. So first, it's 5 parts. So it's visualize, evaluate, calculate, clarify, and realize, right? So that's the 5 steps. So the visualize is coming up with the vision and being able to articulate it and understand it enough for everybody to follow it. Associated with that vision will be separate goals that tie into that vision. So in this particular case, we said we're going to focus small first. They were $1.2 million in their best years. We're going to get you to $5 million. Now, how are we going to get you to $5 million? We're going to make a strong concentration on growing our commercial side of the business because that's what brings in most of the money. We're going to create a segment of business that goes after some government contracts. We're going to have a segment of business on residential, but our strategy is to move away from residential because it doesn't add as much value to the organization and actually drains the organization. And then we're going to come up with a small arm we call maintenance. Okay. And so now that we know what those arms are going to be, one of the things we realized in working with the goals is that the business leader, the owner, was great at business development. So we don't have any problems with actually getting the business. Where we move into the next one, evaluate, that's the people. So what people do we have today? What skills do they have? And to take an internal model, one of the exercises that I did was I took the Turner organization chart and I took the organization chart of this business. And I said, I color coded the boxes. And you see that this one business owner was like in 80% of the boxes. And I was like, you already can see that you can't do everything. They have specialization. So I work with them to understand their current employment profile and organization. And then what do we need? What do we need to start building up to this $5 million model? And who do we hire first? So we organized as soon as we hit this threshold of revenue and this threshold of revenue and this threshold of revenue, we'll hire the project manager, the office manager, additional people that will do estimates. So we came up with a good model that aligned the people with the strategy, right? But we had to take the current people and align them with the strategy as well, right?
Yeah, but I also like the way what you did was you tied it to the revenue goals.
That's right.
So when we hit this revenue bingo, then we initiate the hiring process for these roles so that it's tied to that. Now, you're probably going to tell me later, but I'm curious, in this business model, why did they do the maintenance piece?
What happened was they would get a lot of calls just for these little small maintenance things. And I think because when we talked about wanting to be the largest minority-owned business firm, they got a lot of calls from people that had little small things, and they didn't want to leave them out, right? So they wanted somebody to be able to take that quick call and go take care of things so that they wouldn't completely abandon their base of people as they were trying to go.
Well, it's interesting too. Did they also have it as part of their strategy where they could leverage those relationships to identify new business, new projects or whatever, if they really put an emphasis on white glove service, doing a great job?
What we focused on in that people aspect was the partnerships. There were a number of other firms there was a specific firm that wanted to work with them. What they didn't have was a minority designation. So it was a pool of work that they couldn't get to. So if this firm had the minority designation and this firm doesn't, but they have all the resources, they can get the work and have these folks self-perform and do the work. So so we looked at partnerships to help with that.
Okay.
So step number three is calculate, which is evaluating your cash flow. So the first thing I had to do was get them to understand, hey, here's how your books look today, and they are erratic. So I did a weekly exercise to look at cash flow, cash coming in and cash going out, for what happened this past week and what's going to happen the next 2 weeks. And what I was hoping to get was sort of an 80% predictability on cash coming in. Cash going out is a little bit easier because you got these automatic payments, you got these monthly payments and things like that, except with the costs associated with jobs. But you needed to be more predictable on the flow of cash coming in. So that was a big exercise that we had to do to get them used to looking at themselves more like a finance company than a construction company, because the lifeblood of the organization is cash, and 82% of small businesses fail because they lack understanding of cash flow. So we created a budget associated with the plan to get to 5 million. And we also had a running cash flow. And one of the biggest things that we found is that they were pricing too low, because after having an accountant review their books, they had their labor not in their cost of goods sold, but down in their expenses.
Oh boy.
And yeah. So that was a big aha. And we actually grabbed a hold of a mentor that actually ran a construction management company to help us with this term called general conditions. And we were able to help that organization specifically know. And this is why it's so important for people to get professional help around their books, because now you can see if you're really making a profit or not. And you have to raise your prices, and you have to make your prices match your labor, match your costs. So that was a big aha moment for them in the calculate space. There was one or two other things that happened. I had to reduce their number of outstanding. So I said, let me see all your outstandings, and anything 90 days or more, you can kiss that goodbye. You'd be lucky if you get that. There's what I call the Roto-Rooter Model. When Roto-Rooter came to my house and fixed my leak, they fixed it immediately. And then Mr. Jenkins, pay this bill now. And what this organization was doing was going home, sending an email for payment. And I said, that doesn't work. You need to collect your cash now. Cash is the lifeblood of your organization.
Yeah.
So that's visualize, evaluate, calculate. Now we got to clarify what a plan.
Well, can we stay with the calculate for a moment?
You sure can.
Calculate.
Yeah.
I'm also seeing a lot of people in the trades that are asking for a deposit up front. Yes. So did you also do that as part of what you were doing?
Yeah, we called it mobilization. And we definitely we did that, and we had to enforce that.
Yeah.
Because it was too loose. Right. So it got better, and that mobilization is key. So yes, we did do that.
And I'm curious also, because you had this hardworking small business person running it.
Yeah.
And once you were able to help them understand the cash flow better.
Yeah.
Did they actually end up realizing that they could pay themselves more, and in addition to having more money for their employees? Because a lot of times these hardworking business people don't pay themselves enough.
So you are absolutely right. And they take all their personal finances and throw it into the business, right?
Ooh, danger.
Right. So between this person and their business partner, there was, line items with debt. And I said, you need to add yourselves. We got to pay yourselves back when we improve this. And we also have to get into the habit of creating reserves. We got to put money away, because if you're going to grow, you're going to need capital to grow, and you can't always go to a bank and other places. And they want to see you use your own money before they would offer you more money. So yes, we were able to start getting them paid more, but they were the ones sacrificing because they were living. You mentioned paycheck to paycheck. I like saying payroll to payroll, because they're trying not to lose their workers. And that's the number one thing, making sure that they get paid. But, when you get the people understanding what you're trying to do and some of the trials and tribulations you're going through, I think people are a little bit more understanding and willing to work with you. Yeah. And, so it works out for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely agree. So sorry that I interrupted you from number 4.
No problem. This is a great conversation. So number 4 is clarify. And this is the sweet spot for me, right? So I'm a project manager. I've been a project manager for over 20 years, and planning is my thing. It's my jam, right? If you've heard that before. And now that we have all these things, everybody needs a role in how we're going to get there. So we need to put together a plan. And I like my plans to have components that are daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually, right? Okay. And everybody has a role. So when we clarify, when we articulate the vision and we talk about what the goals are, every role in that organization should have a clear line of sight of their day-to-day actions as it relates to getting to that goal.
Yeah.
And the other thing, in addition to a plan, right? So we do what I call a steep analysis. I didn't make this up, but you may have heard of it. Societal, technological, economic, environment, and political. What are the things that happen outside that if you were able to put together a risk mitigation plan, if it happens, how would you behave? So who knew that we were going to have this major pandemic that was going to just shut down supply chains and drive up costs? Nobody, right? But now that we've had that lesson, let's think about what would happen if this happened again. What if the owner got sick? What if your workers got sick? What if you got locked out again? So it's developing mitigation plans and everybody being aware, okay, let's pull out the nuclear option. This happened. We got to work on it. I mean, there's a difference between a Democrat and a Republican leading the Oval Office, right? We tend to. So you got these changes in fiscal policies. How will it affect you, and how will you behave depending on who's there? So we go through those exercises to start thinking outside the box as well, so that you start paying attention to the environment that can have an impact on your business.
Yeah. And so was the company not defining roles well previously?
Most small businesses don't define roles well. They have titles, but everybody's just trying to do a whole bunch of stuff to get it done. I think the workers that are in the field, it's easy because they have specialties. But you have the owner and an office manager and a partner, and maybe an intern and some other folks, and they're kind of hybriding the work. What's the fire of today? Now they know what their specific roles are, and business development is this owner's key. I mean, their strength. So the biggest problem that they have right now as of today, driving to this, and I just had this conversation, is that the jobs are coming in so big that they don't have the funding to support them, even with the mobilization. So they're now starting to niche out, like what can they do? And they can only do what they do until they're able to grow to the way that they need to grow to take on more.
Yeah. Yeah. And when these people defined their roles or the roles were defined for them. So that's kind of my question. Did they participate in defining the role and then defining their goals? Or were they kind of worked out by the leaders and then handed down to them?
So I would say the people that were there they participated in that. New people, they were handed their roles.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
And look, some people had to be let go because everybody doesn't buy into your vision, right? And you have to make the hard decisions. And another thing with leaders, especially in this evaluate your people space, you got to hire slow and fire fast. And sometimes I find it to be the opposite. And if you know that you're having somebody that's not working out in the business, just because they can do one or two things that takes off your mind, but they're still sabotaging the business, get rid of them, focus, get the right person.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, we have a hiring system that we do that you can hire fast, but it's very comprehensive in a short amount of time. But then when you have someone who's struggling, we really recommend you act quickly in a nice way, hold them accountable that, hey, we need this. How do we get you from where you are today to there? Or maybe they're in the wrong role if they're a good culture match. Yeah. But you got to take action. You can't just sit back and let the person hurt you. It's not helping them either.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. So part 5, and you use the word accountability, right? So part 5 is realize. Realize has 2 major components. The first one being measures, right? So as we talked about the daily, monthly, quarterly, and annually items and weekly items that you have to be on top of, you need measures to be able to see how well you're doing. So, financial measures to help you understand, are you getting the revenue that you're looking for, right? So in this particular case, $96,000 a week. That was what we were looking at, top line. Okay. And then, what's our gross margin, right? So now that we have these costs associated with the job, are we getting the right kind of profit, right? So when you start to see those numbers and understand them, and you got the right setup in your books, you can now start to say, hey, something happened. Let me dive in to see why are our costs going up, right? But our prices are not going up with them or something, or are we doing rework, because we're having quality issues. I told them to change their model to the Roto-Rooter model. So we went to DSO, or days sales outstanding, to 3 days, collect that money in 3 days or less. And if it's commercial, whatever the contract is, don't let it go 3 days past that number. Like, get somebody on them phones and make them calls and get that money in. Yeah, but also think about money going out. Look at your costs and, how fast are you paying? And really the two together is your working capital formula. So I create a dashboard for the teams that I work with to have financial measures, sales measures, customer measures, and employee measures, right? What's your attrition looking like? Are you having too much turnover? Are you getting too many call outs? Are your customers upset? Are you evaluating all these customer calls that are coming in? And so you got to be able to measure and look and take action. But the last part to this is accountability. And what I recommend to the people that I work with is building a board of advisors, because large companies have a board of directors. These CEOs are not running these companies by themselves. They have a group of people behind them, and that group tells them when they're doing good, tells them when they're doing bad, but it holds them accountable. But they also share their expertise because it's shared success. And so having a board of advisors, which is less, I would say, rigorous into the legal issues, helps you to be able to say, hey, but you got to be open to it. You got to open yourself up to, I am going to let these people help drive me and help me set strategy, help me drive it. And when I have a specific problem, an HR problem, I got a board of advisors. They got years of expertise. I got a person that ran this type of company before. They have expertise. And I advise and encourage, pay them, not to the levels that they're getting, with these board of directors, but pay them to make them feel like they're doing something and they're getting paid for their time. And so that's your vision to reality spectrum, right? And that prevents the backsliding by having the measures and the accountability.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The accountability piece, it's very, very important. So let's say I've got this board of mentors. Yeah. And, they're, as you said, they're driving me, and they make a recommendation and I'm not totally bought into it, and they're pushing hard on it. What do I do?
Who are you, the advisor or the CEO?
I'm the CEO.
Well, so I've had that situation happen. And look, I got to the point where there was one particular board that I closed it. Right. So, and I closed it for two reasons. One, when we got to a point where we hit this inflection point, we could not get past. Much of it had to do with the CEO not willing to take the actions. So I just said, well, look, I can't help you anymore. If you have the answers, let's not waste everybody's time. Right. So, and for me, I'm always going to tell you when I feel like I can't add any more value. I've tried everything I know. I've tapped into my network. And so now I'm at a point where I can't help you anymore. It's okay to fold them when you don't know. But, it's your choice.
Yeah, no, I love what you say about paying them. And then there's some nuances that come into play. Yeah. So you just brought up one of them. You have the board, and they're recommending a direction. And this is an advisory board, mentoring board, whatever. and they're recommending a direction that they feel very strongly about, but the CEO or decision makers are not buying in. So I agree with you. The board needs to say, I'm out of here. And I was part of a board, not a formal board, but mentoring accountability group with someone. And we did that. Yeah. Similar thing a few years ago. There's a few other nuances. One is, if you are the leader, and I'm sure you're going to agree with this, you have to make certain that when you set up that mentoring board, not only do they have the qualifications where they really bring you value, but also are you setting up a mentoring board that's just a bunch of yes men? No. Nobody's going to challenge you? Or are you actually willing, like you just said, you got to be willing to listen to them?
Yeah.
You don't have to agree all the time, but you got to be willing to work through stuff.
I agree. And this is, so when I talk about what I do, I actually take on the job of being your board chair. I developed the welcome letter, the charter, and I help you find the people leveraging my and other people's networks. So that you're not using just your own network, because look, we will probably pick people depending on who you are, right? I will probably pick the hardest people because I know that if I don't, my personality, I'm just going to drive it. And I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I feel like I shouldn't be. So, but I just try to get people that are not necessarily people that are attached to the CEO, because you don't want that. You want them to respect these people for their expertise and their time.
Right. Right. And then the other situation that I would bring up is that it's possible, maybe not with you at the head of this mentoring group, but you also have to look at, if you take that business from 1.2 million to 5 million and then to 10 million, you may outgrow that mentoring advisory group and need to go to a new level, or at least replace some of the members so that you're still being pushed to grow the business as far as it can go. Have you had some experience with that happening?
So that has not happened, going past a certain level, right? But it's a thought. So it's happened, but not as a result of the, I would say, revenue number. It's happened when we started looking at what different people were bringing to the table or were supposed to bring to the table. Specifically, I can recall a person who was supposed to be sort of the accounting finance person, and they were unable to help with the numbers around creating forecasts. They were unable to help us around dealing with the weighted average of cost of capital. So what if we borrowed, right? What are some of the things that are going to affect us in terms of what we had to pay back and how we make decisions? And when I started noticing that the person they weren't engaged to the level that I thought they should be, I recommended that me and the CEO, dismiss them and get somebody else. And be more deliberate about what we needed.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like having an employee.
Yeah.
Oh, an advisor, paid or unpaid, but I do agree with you. They should be paid, because you want to respect them and respect their time commitment. So it makes perfect sense. Curtis, this has been great. I feel like we're just warming up here, but how can people get a hold of you, find your book? Why don't you tell them that as we close out here?
Okay. So first of all, connect with me. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Curtis L. Jenkins, right? Second, you can always catch me on email, cjenkins@cljassoc.com. You can find me on Instagram @TheCurtisJenkins. You can find me on Facebook, Curtis L. Jenkins. You can find me as a keynote speaker in NAL Speakers Bureau. But you can find my book where books are sold on Amazon. It's called Vision to Reality, Stop Working, Start Living. You'll find it at barnesandnoble.com. And also, I'm a Forbes contributor. So you'll see me on LinkedIn writing various articles as it relates to Vision to Reality and how I can help small business owners grow their businesses.
Fabulous. I thank you so much for being on the show. I love the way you walked us through that example. Very valuable. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you like the episode with Curtis, please subscribe, leave us a comment or a rating. Love to hear from you. And don't forget habitly.com, our sponsor. Go there, learn about leadership, learn my 3 strands leadership system. It is awesome. Quite frankly, I don't say that out of ego. I just want things that work, and this system works. Habitly.com, 7 days free. Can't go wrong. And stay tuned. We've got more great guests coming. Bye for now.